What a time to be alive.
Very nice little hold music that we had going on there.
It was. It was. I enjoyed that immensely.
I feel calm
Um,
after all that.
this is a beautiful set that that Pat from Deeds has paid for. Thank you, Pat, for the budget. What can I say? It's glorious. It's glorious. Welcome to Step Brewers Podcast. You have joined us live on YouTube for the Deeds of Once More Into the Fray 2021. We've got some pretty special guests for this tonight.
Or do we?
Or do we? We've got a massive show. I am one of your hosts of Step Brewers Podcast, Papa Sweden.
Gonna give you a wow.
With me is the Pilly Panther himself, Ali Davis. You're starting strong. You're starting
I
strong.
know. I've got all the buttons in front of me. It's good. It's good.
Now, if you're not a fan of Step Brewers Podcast, arguably the best beer podcast in Australia,
Jeez.
arguably true. This is our show. We normally do this pre-recorded, have some guests on, a little bit of banter, maybe drink some groggy boys. But tonight we are going live. We've got producer M in our ears with the questions from you guys on YouTube. So jump in those comments, do all the things that push the algorithm up, like and subscribe if you will.
Ooh.
Should we bring in some guests?
Well, it wouldn't be a Step Brewers podcast without your fiery, sexy intros. So go on then.
Okay. It's been said if you leave a cool ship unattended overnight, you'll awaken to find this man fully naked as his name day in glorious form, bathing in it. He'll stand up, give you a knowing smile, nod his head, because he knows that you just made the best mixed culture beer of your life. He's the heartthrob of hopping, the luscious lager lover, and the king of the capture. Brewing out of Glen Iris, Melbourne, Deeds Brewing on Kulin Nation land. It's Neto from Deeds. Neto, welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. Cheers, mate.
You sound super stoked. Super stoked. Oh, I love it. I love it. One of our favourite guests of all time. Great to have you back. Ned, you're one of the brewers at Deeds. Can you give us like a 5-10 second spiel about what your role is at Deeds?
Yep. So I'm senior brewer. I pretty much work hand in hand with Justin on everything in the brewery from sort of start to finish on beers and scheduling and that kind of thing. But I also play a big part in the barrel program, mixed culture stuff, as well as the spirit barrel stouts, which we'll talk about tonight.
Which is why we have you here. And also, your co-worker, the man, this guy, does need an introduction. It's been said, if you solve his puzzle box, you'll be taken to a realm where brewers only use bourbon barrels and it's only risen barley wine. The dude abides like none other have abideth. You can find him in a grindhouse cinema watching back-to-back 90s horror movies and sipping the original hypey boy, the Barrel Age Riz. He's the Baron of Barrels, the Cenobite of the Cellar, 2020's Beer and Brewer of the Year, 2020's Beer and Brewer of the Year, winner of Steppy Award for Brewery of the Year in 2020. It's JC from Deeds Brewing.
Wow. The Cenobite of the Cellar. I like that.
That's
I
good.
thought you like that little touch.
There you go. Pleasure and pain. Excellent.
And you even wore the dude's jumper tonight, which just brings the whole thing back together.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, I knew you guys would. I knew that if I didn't, I would probably have to get up and go get it. And I just decided to get ahead of that thing. So, yeah, it's all here in its glory.
Well, welcome back, JC. Always a pleasure to have you on. Now, do you want to give the people who, I guess, are new to Steppies a little rundown of what you do at Deeds?
Yeah, like I always say, I work at Deeds Brewing. My name's Justin, and I work at Deeds Brewing. I was the first one kind of hired there in terms of production. And I guess, in terms of when we opened the brewery. But I don't know. I don't like titles, but I guess
awards.
Yeah, whatever. Yes, I guess you could say I'm the head brewer of Deeds Brewing. Yeah. So I work very closely with Neto and the rest of the team in order to try and make a lot of delectable beverages. So that's pretty much my purpose, my glorious purpose.
Do you often have to avail Neto of the org structure, or you keep it pretty co-worker friendly? Sometimes you put him in his place, or
no, never once. Never once. We work so closely together that he's literally the his partner does the same, but he's my second wife. It's straight up Utah up in here.
Everyone's got to have like a work wife or work husband. It's a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
It is.
But both our wives refer to the other as the other wife, and that's
yes.
It pretty much says it all.
Now, Mr. Pilly Panther.
Yes.
This set is rather interesting.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean?
Well, look, I'm not going to lie. I do like the direction that you and Pat took it, and clearly put a lot of effort into it. But I feel like it's a Steppies episode. I feel like we should get back to reality.
What do you mean? This is beautiful. It's a beautiful paint sheet behind me, or we're in the Fray. I don't know. I saw a white can. I was like, let's wear white t-shirts and put a white backdrop. Okay, I can put it back.
All right, it's a special night tonight. Let's unveil the real seller.
Okay. Sorry. Oh yeah. It's a little bit better. A little bit more traditional. Oh, you got on the peach hood. Limited a dish, 1 of 3. Oh god. Wow. Now, gentlemen, it has been a while between drinks. Fill us in on what's been happening in the Deeds world as of late. Obviously, you've got the new tap room that's just opened that we are absolutely fired up to come and visit. But, what else has been happening so far in 2021?
Oh, it's been an interesting year, to say the least. We've continued on our path to make multiple new beers every month and continue to dial in the core range. I think that the biggest thing, it's been an effort over the last 6 months, especially with the tap room build, because that's a massive project. And when you guys finally do come down and take a look at it, you'll see it definitely became a game of Tetris for a lot of the first part of the year, moving stuff around in and out and back and forth in order to allocate the space that was dedicated for the tap room. Because as hoarding brewers, we put stuff everywhere. If there's an empty space on the ground, we just claim it as our own and fill it with stuff. So obviously we've had to be educated on that and had to take a lot of our stuff back and make it all fit. I'd say past that, we've been working on a lot of different beers. We've been working on the mixed culture program, has got a lot of love. I'm sure Ned will want to talk about that a little bit. We've got a solid team together now, which is great. It's been a big year so far for us. And now that the tap room's open, like you said, it's been pretty intense, kind of learning that whole new side of things.
Yeah.
And
I think we're gonna talk about that tap room opening a little later in the show, particularly that first week sort of tap list that you put up and a few little cheeky surprises. But we might get to that a bit later.
All right.
Do you think now is a great time to crack some Fray? Because we are here for a virtual tasting.
We should probably get it started. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so.
Agree.
We've got all these fake Fray cans you guys sent us.
Top placements.
They're just
You
full
should
of
put
water,
them. You
mate.
should save them after the show for next year. Don't throw them away.
No,
Hoard it.
there's only one slight label difference, so a couple of lines in a 2021. We can keep those. It'll be fine.
So please, anyone at home right now who hasn't opened a stout or a Fray, whatever you got going on, please do so and pour away this lovely. Wow, it smells good.
Ugh. So the whole point of the virtual tasting tonight, I guess, is to get the brewers on, get on some idiots who run a podcast, talk about this beer, I guess, in depth, because this is becoming, I guess, a pretty important beer in Australian beer nerd culture now, I think. But also, as you're all drinking tonight, do remember that this is an extremely high ABV beer. It's 14.6%. So pace yourself, share with friends. Grog is for sharing. Do not drink a 4-pack under any circumstances. But I mean, we've got some different beers here too. And I know a lot of people listening at home and watching at home, I should say, have been messaging Steppies about the lineup they've got tonight. So a lot of people with 2020, a lot of people with 2021 as well.
Yes.
A couple of cheeky Dark Motive cans getting around. Some people doing some comparisons to American Hypey Boys. So shout out to all of those guys and girls starting to get amongst it. With everyone opening their cans right now, guys, should we have taken these out of the fridge a while ago? Let it warm up a little bit. How's the Fray drinking?
Mine probably does need to warm up a touch.
I think with the size of the can, it and the speed at which you drink it, it does warm up in the glass pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe not if you're sitting in your icy shed all by yourself on a cold winter's night, but if you are, then you choose to drink that way, no judging.
Yeah.
But yeah, I personally like to see it sort of open up gradually as it warms. But yeah, you don't want it at like 2 degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have had this already.
We've had one. Yeah, I've had one. I think you've also had one.
Yes, one.
We've also had many ones last year in the 2020 iteration, which is the first iteration of Fray. So before let's jump back a bit to 2020, and this was going to be your first iteration of the beer, your first bourbon barrel aged beer. Tell us a little bit about the process and how this all came to be. I know it's a big passion of yours, JC, and you wanted to get this up and going at some point. But did you have to push this with Pat and Dave to get it over the line eventually back in 2020?
Let's see, back in 2019 for the original
Fray.
press.
Got to keep going back another year, don't we? Yeah.
Well, I can honestly say that when we first started talking to Pat and Dave about Deeds Brewing and what we wanted it to look like, I'm pretty sure within the first prepared paragraph I had at my interview, I said, it's really important to me that we pursue a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout program. And, I'd eventually like to do barley wines and lots of other things, but it's really important to me that we have this. And they, were fully supportive of it at that time. I think that there needed to be obviously some a test, and that's what eventually became the 2019 Fray. So no, they were very supportive from the beginning. They knew that it was a passion, and I kind of explained to them that it was a beer that it's the beer that gives you that feeling. I don't know, like every craft beer person or that's into craft beer kind of goes on a journey. I don't know, maybe I think my kid will probably be in that generation where they start on craft beer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I didn't, it was all $9 cases of Natty Light, and that is what got us through the night, whether it be warm or cold. So to make that journey to bourbon barrel aged stout, it was an interesting one. But I guess I think it really came to me. We talk about how it's a beer, I started drinking them in Singapore, where it's like 35 or 40 degrees every day. So not exactly the best weather for bourbon barrel aged stouts, but where there's a will, there's a way.
I disagree.
yeah, exactly.
It's always stout season, baby. Normalize stout drinking.
Yes,
absolutely. So anyway, I could just say shortly that I met a gentleman in Singapore at a craft beer bar. His name was Yen Cheng Chu. He was a very, very smart college student that was into craft beer, and he very much liked trying the best there was out there in terms of different kinds of beers. And barrel-aged stouts at that point in time were like the hypey boy, whether it be Goose Island or Dark Lord or those different kinds of things, what Fremont was doing. And he made this ridiculously good trading play that involved Australia. back in 2012, there was a sour festival in Copenhagen. They released a beer for it, Driefontein, called Armand and Tommy. A lot of people, back then would have heard of it. And after the festival was done, the beer was sold into the open market. It was sold and it shipped everywhere in the world except one place, America, where the nerdiest of the nerds are.
That's a bit like the Anchorage doing the big fuck you when they sent barley wine to Australia. Almost.
Yes, it's similar. It wasn't, I don't know if it was on purpose. I don't know if anybody had interest in the beer or what happened. Anyway, long story short, it ends up in Australia, and our mate in Singapore knew that it was here and found out that it had been sitting on the shelf for 6 months and nobody knew what it was and nobody was buying it. So then he contacted a guy in Western Australia, and they went to the distributor out there in the warehouse and took a position on it and bought cases of it. And then they started trading it back to the States for all these white whales. It was incredible. It was an amazing play. I've never seen anything quite like it. But so it was that during that time that all of a sudden in Singapore, we had access to all these like Bourbon County stouts from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2014, 2013. And, a lot of the Firestone Walker stuff and the Fremont stuff and the Pelican stuff and the brewery stuff. There was just a lot of great, amazing bourbon barrel aged beers that I got to try during that time period. And then by the time I moved to Australia and decided to get into brewing, it's always been a passion to make that kind of beer. And, got to play around with it for several years before coming to Deeds. And then, Neto, obviously, he loves bourbon barrel aged stouts as well. And before he even joined, I was like, we're going to have this program. Trust me, we're going to have this bourbon barrel aged stout program. We're going to have a lot of barrels and we're going to be able to pick and choose and do all these different things. And, Pat and Dave were good to their word. And we started with 10 barrels. It was kind of, I think the word I threw around earlier to Ned was proof of concept. We said, look, give us 10 bourbon barrels and let's have a play. We'll brew a batch of beer for it. And then we'll put it away for a year and let's see what happens. And that ultimately ended up becoming once more into the fray. And, people enjoyed it. We enjoyed it as well. And once Pat and Dave saw just the passion that a lot of people have for that style of beer and here in Australia, they were committed to the plan, which was the expansion of that program and brewing multiple batches throughout the year and building a backlog of barrels, a cellar of barrels that would allow us to choose and blend to make Fray. So
amazing.
Yeah, and their support was so good that they, obviously the way that it works with the vintage, right? You've got to keep filling barrels, otherwise your next release isn't going to be 12 months in barrel if you want to release it 12 months later. So we'd already been filling barrels like, we probably would have filled 40 or 60 barrels between when we actually released the 2020 OMIT. We'd already been filling barrels, which have become part of this year's OMIT. So, their support in all of our pursuits, be them clear wins or, maybe learning processes.
Maybe like pale blue dots and
all we don't have to be throwing that around.
Throwing names around,
Yeah.
Oh, he's got 100% strike rate. Come on, take it easy.
But their support's amazing. They share the vision, or if they can't understand what kind of crazy shit we might be wanting to do, they just go, "Yep, cool. I'm sure it'll be good." So it's pretty amazing.
Before we get on to one of the questions we have, so throughout the night, we definitely want the YouTube chat to be throwing out questions and comments and stuff. We've got producer M, who's in our ears.
Lots of comments coming through at the moment, which is great to see.
Excellent. So we might get a little update from him in a moment. But we do also throughout the night, Step Brewers is really brought to screens and sound waves by our Patreon. So friends and official friends and homies of the show, we're allowed to put up questions before anyone else. So we do have a range of those tonight. But we might just check in with producer M, and Ali and I can't see the chat, so let's just hear what's going on in the chat. M.
Hey M.
Hello, boys.
Hey M.
Hello, producer.
How are we all?
Yeah, good. What's going on in the chat?
Lots of people starting to take their first few sips. Some of the the things I'm hearing are coconut, raisins, very smooth, quite creamy. So lots of positive comments so far. So, but yes, please leave your comments and questions in there, and I'll relay them back to the boys because it's all about you guys watching as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100% it is. But yeah, thank you, Em, for checking in. That's lovely. It's nice to seeing all the comments rolling through. It's very exciting. Gets me up and about.
It does. It does. Well, speaking of the support you had from Pat and Dave to put this out, and I guess you guys really put yourselves out there when you released Once More Into the Fray, and obviously hearing that you were already filling barrels before having that feedback loop for the next year. This is from one of our Patreon. I think it was Mr. T from memory. 2020 version of Fray was met with a lot of pushback on the price and the fact that Deeds hadn't released a barrel aged beer before. So, the neckbeards of the internet were very much up and about that this was your first barrel aged beer and quite an expensive one. This Patreon said, can we talk about the amount of work that actually goes into a barrel aged stout like this? Because aside from the fact that a 14.6% beer carries the excise of a small African nation, how much work and effort goes into a beer like this? And, we'll get into a little bit about, people saying that this was your first barrel aged beer isn't exactly correct, but for Deeds it was. So maybe starting with you, Neto, how much work goes into a big stout like this?
Yeah, so I mean, it can be pretty difficult building a beer designed just for barrel. In that, we aim to make the beer as big as possible most of the time. And brewing high gravity, high alcohol beers can be really challenging, especially a stout where you can have a lot of unfermentables, and yeah, just managing that fermentation. It's asking a lot of the yeast. So that's one thing. But then the amount of effort that goes into barrel aging beers it really is a labor of love. I mean, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of forethought. It's very labor intensive, from you try and source good quality barrels. You got to treat the barrels properly, steaming them, maybe repairing them, sometimes on the fly, sometimes before filling. You got to fill the barrels, stacking them, storing them,
Blending.
sampling, sensory, recording all the data, tracking all of that, formulating blends, racking it out of the barrels, dealing with now second use barrels. Do you use them again? Do you try and sell them on? And
Do you
then
put barley wine in them?
yeah. I mean, there's loads of, and then you got to try and carbonate the beer, and then try and package the beer, and this would be more than 12 months after brew day, and then you could just balls it up on packaging day. It's a lot of pressure to try and put that kind of thing
Fucking
into
packaging.
can in the
Always
yeah,
packaging.
It's always packaging, man.
Always packaging.
But it's like, and that's why I guess you see a price tag on it like it is. Yeah, we put every ounce of effort into these kind of beers, but we love it.
That's the thing, though. I think Australia is still very new to bourbon barrel aged or any Russian imperial stout. So when they do say a price of $25 a can, they are shocked because they've not really seen beer be that price in Australia before. Where, a bit more old school drinkers that are sourcing, Bourbon County, things like that from the US. It's quite normal, and it's quite it's not outrageous to be paying 20, 30, now like $100
Anything.
for these kind of beers. So I did find that quite interesting, especially last year, the question of the price.
I think part of that might have been, and like I said, a lot of people saying, I'd like to get your take on this, JC, that because it was Deeds' first barrel aged beer, big bourbon barrel aged beer. A lot of people were talking about, like where are the runs on the board for this? but then a lot of people also in the know are talking about, you guys and your careers and where you've been before. What was that like putting out that beer? Did you have confidence because you'd been at Hawkers before, and Neto has some brewing history with barrels up at Boat Rocker? Did you feel like you had a little secret and you were just going to come out with a bang, or were you genuinely scared to put Fray out there?
I think, it's a funny one. Like you said, I think that's right with the pedigree. I mean, in terms of it being your first ever barrel aged project, it was, it was for Deeds, but it wasn't really ours. There had been experience in the past, and getting the opportunity to try bourbon barrel aged stouts from America or anywhere, Europe, all over the world, that really helps you guide what you're looking for, because you don't know what you don't have if you don't know it, right? I think when we first put Fray together, like I said, we had 10 barrels. We put them together. We tested them a few times over the year, and then it was like, okay, here we go. And Ned and I, we sampled a couple barrels cheekily. We went in, we tried a couple, and we're like, okay, all right, we can bring Pat and David on this. Not a total disaster. So then, we pulled 10 samples and we sat down, and Pat and Dave came out in the middle of all this work they had to do, and they said, oh, okay, let's see what this is all about. And I think they were blown away in terms of the intense flavors. I don't know. We had sampled a couple bourbon barrel aged stouts with them in the past. I think I shared a Black Tuesday with them. We all kind of sat down and did like some tastings on different beers to talk about the direction of the brewery early on. And we drank, we sat and sampled Fray, and then everybody was like, okay, I think that we could do this. And so then it was like, all right, let's put it together. And then, we had to come up with the name. I think that name had been kicking around in my head for a while, and we, it came together and we packaged it, and we had, Paul Mayers, who's our packaging manager. He actually helped draw the label initially, to put the proof of concept of what we wanted it to look like, because it's very different than, it's very different than the, the other beers that, that you see that come out from us in terms of the dazzle pattern and the way they're divided. We wanted it to really just kind of be its own kind of thing. And then, and honestly, I don't know, we didn't really have a fear, but we all knew we were going to do it. And I was a bit surprised when we heard everybody saying, well, who are these guys to just come out and do this? And I was like, well, we all knew what we were going to do. It's not, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should have teased it more. We should have sent some sexy shots of like steam and a dark brewery with a barrel in the front.
Hit us up if you need anything.
Oh yeah. Clint will take all the photos for you.
So then we put it out, and it was, a bit nerve-wracking. Anytime you put out a new product, you're like, oh God. And we also really wanted this program to grow. So, if you missed the mark on it, or it was an unmitigated disaster, then there's a chance that the whole program could be threatened, because it's important, in terms of coming out with something with quality. And Ned and I didn't want to come out with anything that wasn't high quality. And when we went through all 10 barrels and did a blend together of that first one, we said, you know what, all of them tick the box. I think that we could take all of these and, put it together to come out with a Fray. And then obviously it went pretty well. There was a very small pack run, and the response was, pretty epic.
Yeah, crazy. You're down here in, I don't know what it was like in mainland states, but down here in Hobart, the local beer drinking group, like people were posting like, I just got one from this place.
Yeah,
as there any left there. Like people were like posting where to get it, and every bottle shop in Hobart was sold out like so fast, and I drove around buying it from places.
I think we both did. We both did, and because I remember, obviously we're all very good mates here on the little panel and the round table, virtual round table, but Clint and I think we're in was it lockdown? We must have been lockdown or something last year. We cracked our first Fray together because we couldn't, drink together that night. And it was one of those very rare moments for us where, we sort of I like to call them giggle beers because I know a beer is really really good when I have a little bit of a giggle, and it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, so
But
true.
it was one of those special moments that we shared, and it was very beautiful.
You
I
did
think
a giant ninja kick.
I
in
did
the
a
air.
couple of ninja kicks in. Got off my chair.
As you
and-
do.
I remember seeing the photo for that. That's bloody good.
As many cans as I could, and that I could also afford. I'll stack up after you buy 8
Worth
cans.
it. Worth it.
But 100% worth it. Back to 2020. Ed, what do you reckon? People would be sipping on this beer. Hopefully, with pace. I hope no one's finished the can just yet. That would be slightly concerning. But walk us through what you get tasting this year's iteration of Fray and some of the flavors that present, in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, on the nose, first up, I get a lot of like toasted coconut. I get a slight sort of nuttiness. I don't know whether it's like, seems like almost like hazelnut or something.
I was going to
just
say
really-
hazelnut.
yeah, a bit of hazelnut. Some dark fruit in there, esters from the fermentation. We do use a fairly fruit-forward yeast strain for a lot of our stouts. And then, but most of all, as Justin would say, sweet bourbon.
Sweet bourbon.
Yeah, and then it's a bit of oak that sort of comes onto the palate as well.
It's definitely from like both times I've drank it, it's just so super integrated and balanced. Like it's a scary beverage to drink sometimes because you forget that it's 14 odd % or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Exactly. Once more into the fray.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It definitely drinks with a more balance than what you'd expect from a 15%. But no, we're pretty happy with how it's come together this year. I think being able to select barrels, has played a big role in that. I guess we can talk about that more later. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I remember, I'm trying to compare last year's to this year, not that I should, but with the 2020, I got a lot more like sort of molassesy notes, like a little bit of Vegemite, that kind of thing, which I'm all about. But this year's iteration for me is just, as Clint said, a lot more rounded, well balanced, but a lot more like, I get a lot more base beer, like just in the body of it, like real chocolatey, like just so much chocolate in. It's just a stunning base beer, first of all, and then you add in the layers of the bourbon barrel. Then you've got a little bit of coconut on the nose, and it's it's just chocolate.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's great. I had a 2020 the other day, just to get excited for this, and then had this as soon as it arrived, and it's Fray, but it feels like this year's Fray has like it's learned from last year and it's stepped up, and I love last year. But yeah, I get more molasses too on the first year.
Yeah. Also, a major thing for me is the carbonation this year is a lot more, but it also really does help to the mouthfeel of the beer.
I think we've got a Patreon question coming on that later. That's
so
a hot topic.
It sort of just the carbonation just sort of fills out that mouthfeel for me as well. And I think it's absolutely on point this year.
I'd love to hear what people are thinking in the chat, especially those who do have the 20 tonight or the 21. I was like, I told you guys, I was like a little nervous to try this because I'm such a fan of you boys, and I'm not going to deny that. That every time we talked about this in our group chat, I was just like, I'm fucking nervous about Fray. It has to be good. Like,
Tell me about it. Jesus. No pressure. No pressure.
I'll skin a neckbeard if they say a damn word about JC or Neto. Like, I'll skin their beard off. So I was so stoked with myself when I finally opened one.
Boys, I might quickly throw over to the chat because I'm just sort of, there's been a couple of little cheeky questions from, I do apologise for pronunciation if I'm stuffing this up.
You're having a look at the chat, are you, on the side?
Delia Annetts? Mrs. Annetts?
Oh, Mrs. Annetts.
I'll just say Mrs. Annetts because
Tony's lovely wife who we met at Carwin.
She's a lovely lady. She has a question. Well, she's got two that I really like, guys. What are the key breweries' beers as inspiration for barrel aging? I'll start with you, Neto.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved Firestone Walker's barrel-aged beers, as well as Deschutes. I mean, their barrel-aged stouts are second to none. And then, yeah, the brewery, I mean, I still remember drinking a Black Tuesday at Carwin with JC when they had sort of a very informal job interview for to get a role at our previous brewery where we worked together. So yeah, those ones. I mean, obviously, like having worked at Boat Rocker and drinking Ramjet, that was and still is. You know, it's an amazing beer. Yeah, it's unreal. And even some of the Mornington Peninsula Old Pumping Station, that was another one. In the when that was barrel aged, really good beer. So yeah, that kind of stuff that's what I sort of think about.
Beautiful. JC, what about you?
Yeah, well, like I said, I got an opportunity to try a lot of the old hypey boys back in the day. So, I mean, obviously, the brewery was big for me. Black Tuesday, Grey Monday, Mocha Wednesday. What they're able to do with their stouts, especially the ABVs they can achieve and the flavors they can pull through. Yeah, they were, you know, I mean, we make a very different beer than them, but they definitely put us on a path in terms, in my mind, of what could be achieved and what could be done. I think also, you know, it's hard not to cite Bourbon County, especially when you talk about not only the base beer, but some of the variants and, you know, the proprietors and the King, you know, I think it's King Henry, you know, those kind of beers, I mean, early on were just spectacular in terms of what they achieved in terms of flavor, just a completely different thing, you know. I think the most recent review on Untapped for Fray says it's kind of like a rum and, you know, a bourbon and Coke. So, you know, 3.5 stars. So I'm happy with that. You know, if you got bourbon and Coke out of it and that's all, then you know, the RTD is probably cheaper. But you know, that's fine.
If you got bourbon and Coke out of it, you are an. Sorry.
But no, you know, I
fucking
think
donkey.
big, thick, heavy stouts and those kind of things were all big players. And then obviously when I first moved down here and started getting into the industry, obviously, you know, Ramjet was well on its way at Boat Rocker, and then you know we got to do some stuff at where Ned and I previously worked at Hawkers and with their barrel program, and it was really a lot of fun to taste beers down here that were you know getting to that, you know, slowly working their way towards you know what I had sampled from the States.
Yeah. Well, I think I did put this on the table tonight, not to drink, a 2018 just base beer Bourbon County that we actually shared one last night.
We've gone back-to-back Rizzes.
Back-to-back Riz nights. For those fans of the Steppies, you are getting a very big episode soon. But I put this out on the table because when Fray 20 came out, there were a lot of people online and a group of brewers I'm in were all messaging each other while we were drinking it, being like, does anyone else get 2018 BS vibes? And I think one of our brand new Patreon, Tony, is drinking this at Tony's Tap House tonight alongside his Frays. So
very nice.
Very, very sexy lineup at the Tap House. So well done on Dry July. Kicking it off in style.
So close.
Yeah,
The family kicking it off in style tonight. I love that energy. But yeah, there were a lot of comparisons to 2018, and it wasn't just me and my deep love for you guys. It was, you know, brewers saying it, and I think it was
what an honor that is.
Yeah,
yeah, amazing.
What an honor!
Praise.
That's a world-class beverage.
Yeah, and you know when this stuff came out in Australia, I think it was $50 a stubby or something along those lines. So, you know, expensive beer that we were very happy to pay for, and I'm so much happier to pay, you know, whatever it is, $25 a can for such a stunning beer that I can share with a mate, and just really get behind, and to see the direction you guys are pushing it. I think we should all be very excited.
100%. Very good.
Appreciate that a lot. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's a, you know, like this is one of those beers that you make for people that love this style of beer. It's not for everybody, and I get that, you know, but I think it's one of those ones that Ned and I both have had a passion for, and you know, Pat and Dave have, you know, developed a passion for, because it's such a unique and incredibly integrated beverage in terms of all the flavors Ned was talking about: coconut and vanilla and chocolate and sweet bourbon and oak and this big bodied, you know, it's a regular bourbon and Coke. It's awesome.
Well,
you're not going to let that down for a while.
To be fair,
Won't be the last time he says that one.
I did have a little cheeky check of Untapped maybe yesterday, so I didn't see the bourbon and Coke one, but it was sitting at a very healthy 4.7 or something.
Christ.
Stupid. So I think you guys are maybe on track for, you know, one of the top beers in Australia on Untapped, which we know is the most important thing to all brewers. Keep getting shoved down my face how important being number one on Untapped is.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's fine. As long as the beer tastes good, guys, that's all that matters. Come on. Now, look, we do have another Patreon question from Chiller.
Chiller.
Good old friend of the show, Chiller.
Security for the Step Brewers at Gabs.
JC, he wants to know what's behind the name, once more into the fray, the inspiration for the name, and the imagery on the can.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's a phrase that's, you know, been on my mind for a while. I'm gonna have to give the love to Liam Neeson. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
It's you know, he and I believe it was Joe Dante. They made a film several years ago about some Alaskan oil field workers that crash in a winter storm in the, you know, the forests of Alaska, completely isolated, and then get hunted down by wolves. And you know, it's a really dark, and it's not a Christmas movie. You're not going to throw it on December 25th, even though there's a lot of snow in it. It's
no, December 5th is Nightmare Before Christmas. Everyone knows
correct.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
so
fuck.
you know, it's an intense film, and I I just remember watching it and seeing how dark it was. And there's in the middle of the, you know, the movie, the main character, the troubled hero that's an anti-hero, and the whole thing, that's the survivalist, you know, he only remembers one poem that his dad told him, and it's once more into the fray, into the greatest fight that I'll ever know. Live and die on this day, live and die on this day. And, you know, I was like, once more into the fray. It just seems like you're making a beer that is intense. You're making a beer that is going to be full of flavor, and it's going to be a high ABV, and you're going to have to sit down and you're going to have to get through it. You know, you're going to have to, it's going to be not a challenge. It's going to be a pleasure to drink, but it's, you know, we wanted it to be a monster. And for me, that name kind of resonated with, like, all right, you're going to have to sit down and do this. And the imagery on the can is very taken from that of a man kind of like heading on his own into a winter storm, you know, to get through it once more into this battle. And when we first came out with it and we're drinking cans, it almost meshed perfectly, because it's like, oh, here we go. Probably, you know, should have cracked this one earlier and not try to end the night on it, because
is that a bit like how you two guilted me into opening one the other night when I said I was going to go to bed? And you're like,
exactly.
we've just opened one. Why won't you open one?
If your arm isn't feeling like it's twisted a little bit to crack the can, then are you really getting the full experience? I don't know. But yeah, no. So we kind of ran with that idea, that, you know, that it's, you know, a battle and a journey. And I mean, obviously last year when we released it, it was a crazy time globally in the world with what was going on and lockdowns. And I'm pretty sure right after we released it, we went into the bigger extended kind of lockdown in Victoria that lasted for months, you know, when we were trying to get out of it before Christmas. And it just kind of, I think it had a resonance about it because of that, in the sense that, like, here we go again. We got to battle through this. It's going to be really hard. And it's just interesting that it came out at that same time. So that's kind of did I get it, Neto? Did I pretty much nail it, or?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, you mentioned before about Paulie, our packaging manager playing a big role in sort of sketching up the figure walking into the snowstorm, off into the distance, and the footprints kind of trailing off into the snow. Yeah, look, it was a big moment to get that through the design, or the marketing department, I guess, as well, because that was the first one to sort of go off-brand, so to speak.
It still fits though.
Every one of our beers, yeah. Oh no, look, obviously it came out beautifully, and we've gone with it, and we're super stoked with it. But it was a big move to go away from that, you know, that layout that's so recognisable when you see a Deeds beer on the shelf.
No, I love it.
And it's a testament to Pat and Dave trusting and believing in it. They were like, oh, you know, we kind of have this theme, and it's really important for branding and this kind of thing. And it was like, well, this is, you know, this stout could be, if it comes off well, it'll be, you know, it could be one of our great, you know, it could be one of our beers, one of our, you know, bigger releases, or it could just be an absolutely delicious beverage. I think that it will, you know, you want it to stand out on the shelf, and you want to have that image, but you also, you know, there's kind of a, even though you don't tell the story, and I've had to explain it now, you know, I mean, it is kind of a bit of a haunting image, right?
Yeah. And it's not the only that's referred to darker imagery, but it's certainly being able to like encapsulate that pretty less subtly in the design, you know, because you're able to break away from the, you know, the dazzle pattern of that sort of, it opens it up to allow for something a bit more bold and stark.
Love it.
I think that Pat and Dave agreeing to it basically, in my mind, meant this is a separate program. It's Deeds. It absolutely is Deeds, just like everything we do is. But it, you know, it's kind of like this could be the start of something that is a little bit, you know, just kind of, you know, a little bit different and a little bit of a love and a passion project.
Yep.
Because, like Neto said, I mean, you know, barrels, I mean, forgive me, that they're a pain in the ass. They're awkward. They're heavy. We're not next to Kentucky, so we got to get them in here. They got to be fixed. They leak. They might not smell that good. You got to find good ones. Then you got to buy racks, and then you got to, you know, it's like, oh well, we could be, you know, punching out 3 turns of a pale ale or a draft or whatever, but no. We're going to spend 15 hours today screwing around with this and hope nobody asks questions about what we're doing, you know, like, because...
Or Pat and Dave become the wolves and, like, literally tear your face off.
Yeah. No, never.
Now, Emily, if anyone does have a question, I'll bring her in just a sec, but we do have a Patreon. Just sign up, Benny Mac. So thank you for joining the Patreon.
Signed up live.
Benny Mac live sign up. So that's very nice.
That's huge. Thank you. Thank you for joining the crew.
Yeah, it's real nice. So
it's gonna be some horny after chat.
We do have a Patreon. If you want to join the Patreon, you can. You don't have to. You can enjoy more naughty things.
You can just enjoy the pleb content.
That's
and
right.
not be part of the special stuff afterwards. Like
sorry for keeping you in.
Me and Neto getting shirtless and wrestling, you know.
All right, Em, what have you got for us from the live chat?
All right, boys. There's quite a few questions coming through now, but just probably on the back of what the boys were just talking about, we've had a couple of questions asked about the bottling versus the cans. And Benny Mac, who is new Patreon, actually asked this question, so I'll get to his question first. He would love to know if there is any intention to shift to bottles for longer term cellaring.
That wasn't on the run sheet, guys.
Yeah.
I told you that we're doing it live, Brett.
Wow. Okay.
Look, bottles are pretty sexy. I mean,
They are.
you see like any of the side project looks beautiful. Private press, beautiful. I mean, even the range release that's just come out. I mean, it's gorgeous.
The Harry
It's
Potter
amazing.
beers, they looked good.
Harry Potter. Oh, jeez.
Um,
God.
but
Matt's
no,
my
it's-
homie.
we wouldn't rule it out. We do have a gravity filler, that we
Magnums.
could do some big boys
They
in.
come to
But
Magnum.
You know we fill magnums. Come on, man.
Yeah,
You already
yeah.
know this happened.
dude,
You heard
Yeah.
it.
I've got to
The
build.
private collection.
I've still got to
I'm-
build you that lambic Magnum basket now.
That's right, you do.
I know I owed you. I
Heading,
promised
bro.
you that one night.
You
Got to
did,
get
you
my
did. Don't think
Ryobi
I've
out.
forgotten. Yeah, that's it. Ryobi boys for life.
Yes,
Uh,
that's it.
Yeah, but
No,
look,
it's possible.
yeah, absolutely.
It's possible.
But there's nothing wrong with cans for extended
No.
aging.
Mm.
Like,
1050 proved that to me with their
Yeah.
barrel aged stout in the
Fucking love
stovepipe
1050.
550 ml can. That's my movie theater beer. If I'm going to go to a 3-hour epic adventure and I'd want a beer that's going to last the whole movie and not get worse when it warms up, what are you talking about? It's the perfect 3-hour film.
is that the
beer.
stovepipe? Is that what they?
Oh
is that
yeah,
what
it's
they
like
call it?
it's like
Yeah,
an oil can. Yeah,
Oh,
and
Such
once
a
you
good
know,
can.
once I tried that and a couple other barrel aged beers that came in cans, I just thought that a 440 ml format would be absolutely epic. And look, you know, it can still be cellared, but what we always say, at least in the brewery, and you know, we express to people, is that we've already aged the beer. We aged it for 12 months in barrel, and when we tasted it, we thought it tasted pretty good, and that's why we put it in a can. And that's all. And that's the truth. Like, if you talk to some of the brewmasters out in the States, they'll say, you know, this beer will evolve, it will cellar, it will age, but you know, we didn't can it or bottle it because we thought it would get better in 6 months. You know, you should tip
Interesting.
it back right now. And I think, look, I still cellar. I had Fray from last year. I will have Fray from last year and this year, next year. I still, you know, because I'm interested in doing verticals and trying it and seeing what changes and using that for what we want to do in the future. But I would honestly say, I mean, you know, we've done a lot of the aging and we've taken the time to blend it. And, you know, I think that, you know, that can format, if it forces people to drink it sooner, then so be it. But again, you can still cellar it and it'll last. I would think. I mean, it's, you know.
I find so much more of my cellaring is because I want to have that beer when no one else has it, and then open it for a friend. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I love.
You know,
I love going
it's
to
your
a bottle
birthday
share.
beer. It's
Yeah.
your celebration beer. It's, oh, I got mates around. You look at what I got back here in the back of the fridge. You're gonna love this. Or have you had one? Or when it opens up and my friends from the States can come over and they're like, because you know, they obviously follow and see these beers and they're like, oh, it'd be great to try that. And I'm like, you will. You will one day. I have them.
And obviously, once you've got no more 2020 Fray, then that's it. You know, like, so it's nice to be able to, just have it.
Exactly.
And just, you know, just so you can drink it. But there's nothing wrong with cans for aging beer in. Like, it's, you know, in my experience, it's really no different to bottles. You know.
Who else have you got in the chat, Queenie?
Well, Emily,
There's-
please be quiet because we've had another Patreon join. We have Tim that has also joined the crew. I don't have a last name, Tim, but love your work. Hell yeah, Tim. Very nice.
Welcome, friend.
I'm very
Welcome,
fired up.
friend.
This is
Add me on
Yeah.
Facebook.
This is
Add me on Facebook so I can put you in our
it's
group.
kind of weird, but anyway, no worries. Emily, sorry. Yes, push on.
There's a couple of other questions going around. We should probably go to the most important one first. What is Justin's favorite bourbon?
I need to know this. This is a question I would like to know as well. This is good.
That's a good question.
Oh yeah, look, I grew up in West Virginia, shares a border with Kentucky as well as 5 other states. So bourbon was, you know, not only cheap but pretty prevalent around, and you know, we grew up in a rural community, so bourbon was everywhere, and that's fun. And so we had nothing to do, so we drank a lot of bourbon. And yeah, sure, we had fun drinking games like Drink Jim Beam, or you know, that just involved flipping cards and chugging from a bottle. You know, no, I'm just kidding. But I think for me now, I think my go-to bourbon, if I feel like having a bourbon, is typically going to be a Michter's. You know, that's not paid endorsement. I'm just saying that is something.
We can get it paid if you want, bro.
Yeah,
We can set that up.
I'd like some points on the back end. But then it's like it's a bourbon that you can find fairly easily here in Melbourne, and I quite enjoy it. In terms of like bigger bourbons, you know, stuff that you have to hunt around for, or maybe find at Carwin Cellars, also not a paid endorsement. You know, you have to go to, you know, Willet or things like this are important. I've got a nice bottle of Stag Junior that I'm hoping will last me into my retirement, but going at this rate, it probably won't. So, but no, I'd say on the rare occasion that I decide to sit down and have spirit, because I'm a responsible adult and I have 3 children and I'm very, very busy at Deeds. I would say that a Michter's is, you know, kind of my go-to. So I hope that answers the question.
Very nice.
Hopefully they will watch
great.
this podcast and be willing to send us some barrels. So if you're out there, please, please
we connect
let me
people.
know.
We connect people. That's all I'm
Jeez.
saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make it happen, Clint.
Yeah, well,
let's get it done.
Clint does like to talk the talk, but can he actually deliver on some barrels? Would he keep them
Wow.
for himself? I'm
No,
not
he
sure.
would keep them for himself.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Clint,
that's
if you get them, buddy, we'll just do a collaboration, buddy. That's there.
Oh, speaking of collaboration, there is actually a question that has come through about a sneaky little collaboration. So Dave Clawton has asked, when is the Steppies and Deeds Barrel Aged Stout collab going to be released, and what adjuncts are the Steppies planning
Oh, no,
on
the
adding to the
adjuncts.
Fray base?
So did you
Okay.
guys pay that guy to ask that question? Is this how it works?
No, he is a Patreon, so technically. he
Oh,
paid
okay.
us.
All right. I just
We can jam the adjuncts to you now.
Sabro.
No.
Sabro variants.
it'll accentuate the coconut. We can dry hop it after.
But it's going to be called This Is the Way. So you'll have once more into the fray.
How dare you
And
steal
then you'll
that.
have This Is
How
the
dare
Way.
you steal that idea from our group chat? Oh.
And look, I'd prefer not to have adjuncts in it.
We've asked this with the boys before. Not going to give away any of those discussions, but we live in Tasmania. They live in Melbourne. We can bring things to the party. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Do you want to?
I don't even know what you're talking about. But that's
No.
fine.
Do you want to talk a little bit about adjuncts, guys? Maybe. I'm just throwing you an alley-oop. I need you to put it down.
Adjuncts is in beyond malt going into barrel aged stouts, or
Yeah, maybe something like, I don't know, something sexy. I don't know. What do you think?
all right. I'll do this. I'll throw this out there. Then. Obviously, the plan, and Neto and I have talked about it a lot, is we got once more into the fray in 2020, and it went okay. And then Pat and Dave were there. They were like, all right, awesome. Let's look at doing this again. And it was like, yes, okay, perfect. And we have painstakingly built a barrel collection, various bourbons, various barrels, various stout recipes, like the whole thing. And we've built it up over time, and now we are ready to work with those barrels, select them, and hopefully, if all goes well, have multiple releases throughout the year. So you don't have to just wait for Fray, but we're hoping that a couple times, 3 times, whatever, how many of it ends up being, we will be coming out with different bourbon barrel aged products, because that was always the intention. Not just barrel aged. You could have rye barrels, you can have whatever, anything that we want to do. And so when you talk about adjuncts and flavors, obviously this year, there was a little Fray side project that we can talk about later or whatever.
No, you talk about it now if you like, my friend.
Now, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty sure they were leading into this question, Jason.
Is that what they did?
Pretty sure they're leaving a little crumb trail for you, bro.
Wow. Hansel and Gretel me. I didn't see the oven. And okay. All right. So yeah, I can do this. All right. Whatever.
What have you got there?
So there you go.
Oh,
there it is.
I don't think I've
Yeah.
seen a black can of Fray.
What's
No.
going on there? That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
So coming in at a smooth 15.5%, a little bit higher, and with coffee and vanilla. we did a really small project on a Fray variant. There's something that, you know, Neto and I had talked about for a while in terms of now that we had stock to pull from, what could we potentially look to do? Did we want to have something come out around the time of Fray? Did we want to just wait? And we said, okay, look. So when we went in and should we just start talking about Fray a little bit about the barrel selection?
Get in.
All right, I'll go basics here, and Neto can please chime in. So this year, you know, obviously we wanted to, you know, select the best barrels that would make Fray, and also make sure that they blended together well. Ned and I, and you're gonna laugh, and I'm not joking. We sampled 40 barrels, so we had 40
that's
that we
hard work.
felt were in that age range. We sampled 40 of them. It took about 4 days because you can't do 40 barrels in a day.
No,
It's
no.
just your
Palate.
palate isn't going to be
Palate
there.
fatigue.
It's like disaster zone. So we spaced it out over several days, and then from that we ended up whittling that down to 20 barrels that we felt had the potential. We have some very funny notes on what those barrels were, so we can share them with you later, maybe. Very funny comments, so we remember which ones were which. And then we sat down and we started going through it, and you know, ultimately we selected 14 barrels for the Once More Into the Fray, and 5 barrels ended up going into the variant. And that's kind of how that process happened, right, Ned?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, we made a short list of barrels that were ready to be packaged in one format or another. Some were just like cream of the crop. You could barrel them, package them single barrel release, and they would stand up in their own right. And then others were like, oh, this barrel, you know, it's missing a finish, or it's missing a mid palate, or aromatically it's a bit one-dimensional, or maybe it's a bit thin, or maybe it's a bit heavy. You know, these different parts that when you put them all together in a blend, they can help to balance out other barrels
And offer up different highlights.
Yeah, or bring something else up in the blend. So we found, for example, in this year's Fray, it's made up of all Buffalo Trace and Maker's Mark barrels. And we found the Buffalo Trace barrels are generally pretty full on. They, you know, our experience is that, you know, make no mistake, if you put it in a Buffalo Trace barrel, you know you're going to get a shitload of bourbon. Like it's just there, and you're going to get an ABV jump. It's going to thin out the body a bit as a result of that alcohol in the barrel. You know, and so if we had have packaged all of a Buffalo Trace, it would be
Very different.
Very different. It will come across thinner. It's going to be higher ABV. The bourbon's going to be there, but the heat is probably just taking a bit out of balance, and that's not what Fray is for us. So the Maker's Mark barrels work beautifully to bring that into check and to balance it out. So yeah, we'd made a short list, and then Justin and I went away separately and did our selection of what we would say, what
Individual
barrels.
barrel blends without being together. Saying,
Yeah, that's
this is
some,
what I would do.
limited beers I'd like to see come out: the Ned version and the JC version.
I just want
Yeah,
the
so
Ned
what
version. You can keep the JC version.
I think we looked to select 10 or 12 barrels overall, because that's the kind of batch size we're thinking for Fray. And 50% of our selections out of 20 barrels were the same.
Exactly.
So which is pretty
Done
amazing when you
independently.
think about it. We had 5 or 6 barrels the same in our blends. So we obviously did those, and then sort of made do with the rest of the blend. So that was actually a pretty cool moment, because this is the first time we'd actually sat down and had the opportunity to do this. You know, from day one we'd spoken about doing this. This was always the plan, to build multiple recipes, have multiple bourbon barrel types from, you know, different distilleries, using all the tools available to the brewer to build complexity and balance in the final beer. And so to be able to actually do that, then for that to be like the result of our first like blend, it was really cool. And look, the whole process is an absolute joy.
Oh, it's a brewer's dream right there.
I
What are you
can't.
doing there, Ali? What's going on?
I couldn't wait anymore.
All right, well, I'll go as well. I'm sure there's some people that want to talk about this.
Got a little bit thirsty. Well, while we're talking about singular barrels and things like that, if anyone did pick up the Carwin pack recently,
7.
the Mags 7, you might have found a little one of these in the box as well, the Dark Motives Limited Bourbon Barrel Age Stout as well. So
It's caused a few tongues to wag.
yes,
on the internet.
we've been chomping at the bit to try this. So
Have you not had it?
no,
First time?
So we only bought the one box to share. So this is a singular can of it. So
I'll sort you guys out.
you don't have to do that, mate. But thank you if you do. Anyway, who wants to tell us about this? Maybe you, Ned.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because we were sort of, I think we'd only tasted through some of the barrels at this stage. Like Justin said, we tasted through about 10 at a time just because, yeah, your palate fatigue kicks in pretty quickly after about 10. And yeah, so there was obviously the project for with the Carwin boys, that mob putting together. We were really, always stoked to be a part of projects with them, and yeah, to be a part of that blocks is a lot of fun. So they came down to the brewery. We'd pulled some samples from barrels that we had previously sampled that day, and so the samples were fresh. They're ready to go. Gave them sort of some options on the table, like, here's a good representation of the different barrels in the oak cellar at the moment, and you guys, like, you tell us what you think about them. Let's all sit around. We sat around, myself, Justin, Ben Duval and Ben Carwin, and then Pat and Dave were there as well, and tasted through them and came up with, they selected 2 barrels. I think it says 3 on the label, but it ended up being a 2-barrel blend in the end there. So yeah, this obviously, you straight away, the thing is, if you have 14 barrels, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of different balancing happening between, when you talk about 2 barrels, that's really a much rawer expression that comes into the final beer. Because, I mean, I can tell you, it was a Buffalo Trace and a Maker's Mark barrel. The Buffalo Trace barrel was zinging. It was super potent, but amazing. The bourbon intensity was just beautiful. The oak extraction was quite heavy in that one, and the Maker's Mark just came in really nicely and balanced it out. It is a slightly higher ABV. Oh no, actually it isn't. It's 0.1% lower. Anyway, but
you're an idiot, obviously.
yeah, I am an idiot.
No, I think of the variant.
I'm thinking of the variant. Yeah.
This is why JC got 2020 Brewer of the Year.
That's right.
It's those numbers.
It was a team effort, and I tried to make.
I know, you get
I did
upset
ask
at
them
me.
to make it a team award. I don't like individualistic. I think a
I
team
love
award.
I love bringing it up because I know how much you
Watch
don't
him
like
squirm. It's so
it.
unfair.
It's the best. It's the best.
But yeah, it's interesting because people saying, "Oh, is this pretty much just like Fray with a different label?"
That was the word.
That's it's a fair enough question. But if you taste it, it's very different.
It's absolutely. Well.
What do you think, Ollie?
It's a giggle beer.
It's
Beer.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I remember when we were going over some of the Patreon questions before this, we did talk about this one, and people were saying it's just Fray. They're just squirreled away a couple of barrels. But I think throughout the chat, what is really coming across is Fray is is a blend and something quite specific. And yes, this is from your barrel stocks, but this is its own beast. And yeah, Wowee is its own beast. It's fucking delicious.
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Bag 7 boxes left, or
Yeah.
I guess it depends. I don't know.
Well, can I just
Yeah,
jump?
no, it was great for them to come down and do it. We love working, like we said. I like the Bens. It was one of the first bottle shops I went to when I moved to Australia, and I met them early on when I was putting bottles in boxes and just trying to figure out what I was going to do down here. And they have always been amazing, to work with and to get the opportunity to do these projects. Ben called and said, "Hey, we're doing this box. It'd be awesome if you could do something for it." And I said, we got all these barrels. They're just lying around. We're not doing anything with them, and which isn't true. But they came down and yeah, like Ned said, we did it and we tried them, and then they, we all had our input, and yeah, I couldn't be happier in terms of how it came out. It's a very different beast, I think single or double barrel releases always will be. So,
yeah. And I think it is really important that it does taste very different to Fray, because it shows it's not just so that people taste it and go, oh well, it actually does taste different, so they're not just labeling something else. It's more about education, right? Like you can taste how for us, we can taste through the barrels and we can in real time go, oh, that's what you get. Like the barrel to barrel variation is amazing. Even from the same, like you might put beer in a Buffalo Trace barrel and that's A29, and then you put beer in a Buffalo Trace barrel 2 minutes after it and that's A30. But when you taste those two beers, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the track, they can be pretty different.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Not
So
to mention different recipes and then different casks as well. So this is where it all comes into it, It's blending.
It was funny. One of the when we were initially doing the tasting for Fray, and we did our sensory, Ned and I both ticked one barrel, and then we were like, yeah, perfect, yeah. And then we sat down and looked at the list, and it was like, oh shit, Carwin already took that one. All right, fine. We still got another. We still have 20, 40 to taste. But I remember specifically being like, hell yeah, that's a barrel right there. Wow, that. And then I was like, oh yeah, wait. That's gonna have a skull on it. So it's
like, yeah, they got one of the real good ones. Yeah.
Seats taken. Yeah.
Classic Bens. Classic Bens.
At least their palettes are on point.
They certainly are. Yeah.
Now we've got producer M coming up in the ears again, so let's hear from the chat.
And we've got another Patreon, Fatheads Beer Adventures. Welcome to the crew. This is
Fatheads. Is he referring to the fact that I have a giant Austrian head? Because I rate that.
Hey mate, you can take that personally if you want to. I think that's just the name he signed up as. So
That's just his username.
Yes.
Oh, thank you,
He's
producer.
a good boy too, Fathead. He's a good boy.
G'day, Fathead. Welcome to the official Friends of Homie.
Cheers to you, sir.
Please add Clint Donahoe on Facebook so I can get you in the homies group. Should we? Em, should we go to the chat?
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in as well. There must be some more Mag 7 boxes because we've just had someone jump on and buy one just seeing that this Deeds beer is in the pack. So
That's very horny.
Hey, we're doing our job.
pretty
selling-
solid advertisement right there.
There you go. You won't be disappointed to whoever did purchase that. But this is bourbon lover's dream, basically.
It's a delight. It's a delight.
It's pretty intense, right?
Yeah,
it's aggressive. It's good.
yeah, good aggressive.
It's very good.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of questions about barrels, so I figure I might as well throw those in while we're having this discussion now. The Big Chili is asking, Big Chili, what size are the barrels? And I think, Ned, you kind of already answered this part, but what bourbon was in them? And then another question from Mrs. Annette is, are there any Australian barrels worth using?
Big topic.
Hot
Big topic.
So bourbon casks are generally between 2 and 220 litres. They vary a lot because they're probably like the shittest barrel quality and that known to man, as far as like they just whack them together with really thin American oak staves, and so yeah, they vary a lot. Bourbon can only be made in Kentucky, so like if there's Tennessee spirit, that's Tennessee whiskey.
Jack Daniels is technically not bourbon.
Jack Daniels is Tennessee whiskey. Jim
Tennessee
Beam
whiskey.
is bourbon.
Yep.
For
the
example,
champagne of the South, if you will.
Oh, jeez.
Takes
so
me
yeah,
back. Takes me
the Fray uses Buffalo Trace and Maker's Mark. And last year was Jim Beam.
Yeah.
I
You
believe.
like your dirty barrels, you boys, don't you?
Well, Justin's always said, you know, like the cheaper the better, because sometimes you just need to taste the bourbon. You know, the more complex barrels can, sometimes they require a bit of a longer aging time. We haven't ever had the pleasure to work with like a Willet or anything like that, but you know, it's really hard to get that stuff down here anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But other things that we've got in the cellar at the moment are Heaven Hill,
Lovely.
Barton is another one,
Okay.
and I think there's another one that I'm not
Turkey.
remembering right now.
Turkey.
What's that?
Wild turkey.
Wild Turkey, yeah.
Oh.
The way you say it, you say it with such pride, JC. Like turkey.
Man, used to drink a lot of wild turkey.
I used to drink a lot of wild turkey American honey from a shoe at shows.
Excellent.
No judgment whatsoever.
When you were a rock star.
Yeah, that was a great time to be alive. Anyway.
But we love bourbon barrels. That's the best barrel to age an imperial stout in our opinion.
Humble opinion.
Humble opinion. We haven't used Australian whiskey barrels to age imperial stout in yet. We certainly will, but we've got more experience using bourbon barrels, so that's kind of more comfortable for us. Whiskey, I find whiskey a bit more tricky, and
Bourbon is very smooth. It has natural vanilla and coconut notes, and I mean, who wouldn't want that in an imperial stout?
It's interesting. We talked about this a little bit because it's sort of that. It's that thing that, you know, all brewers barrel aging stouts love bourbon barrels, but we're in Australia, and you know, we've got whiskey barrels here, particularly in Tasmania. We've got a lot of whiskey barrels now. Starwood barrels are becoming a feature amongst brewers. But yeah, it's that whole thing of what can you get out of those barrels? Like I find using Australian whiskey barrels, they can be pretty aggressive.
Yeah. They're also a lot wetter compared to what we get coming over from Kentucky, you know. I mean,
yeah.
You're going to have,
it's one and the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had barrels from from Overeem and Derwent Distilling that, you know, you can take to the brewery and you can pour into a glass, a little glass of whiskey because they're so wet. Like, you know, they're emptying that day and just giving it to you. So
amazing.
It's an interesting challenge, I think. But I think the bourbon, you know, that's the love we all have from the buying American stouts and bringing them over.
And it's just, it's American oak as well. Like, I mean, the flavors you get out of American oak is fantastic. That's where the coconut and the vanilla comes from, you know. Like, it's not as much the spirit. Like the flavor of bourbon, that's you're getting, it's the oak.
It's oak, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the time that it spends without bourbon in it coming over to Australia lends to having a softer profile in the finished beer that's been aged in that barrel.
Interesting.
You know, if you've got a very wet barrel, like I said before, you need to sort of tame that back through blending, whether you're brewing a fresh imperial stout to blend back with, or, you know, whatever your approach might be. It's pretty intense. You know, it doesn't take a lot of. You're basically talking about putting a little bit of whiskey blended into the beer. And it doesn't take much to make the beer a bit fiery.
Have a big impact.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, right?
Great little segue to a question that wasn't on your run sheet, but nevertheless, funnily enough, did come from a Patreon. So everyone knows that they can just message the steppies, whoever you are. But I will say this one: there was a question that that James wanted you guys to answer. Was the Horseman series? So I've got a second Horseman here. Is the Horseman series brewed? It's obviously not barrel aged as a blending component for Fray? So is it a fresh beer that you use to soften up Fray or round out edges, or is Fray just all barrel?
100% barrel.
Yeah.
100% barrel. The Imperial Stout Horseman series is a completely different beast because it's brewed to not age or have those characteristics in the sense of, I mean, not aging in a barrel and wanting to profile the flavors that Ned just mentioned. It's, you know, it's a beer that's designed to, you know, to brew, to ferment, to crash, to package, and to be enjoyed right away. You know, one thing Ned and I agreed on early on is if we're going to be making beer for barrel, we are making beer specifically for barrel. And, you know, I think there's a lot of breweries out there that are, you know, building barrel programs, and they may have an Imperial Stout in their lineup, and that's what they throw in barrel. And that's fine. You know, it can work well, you know, some of the time, all the time, a lot of the time. But I think from my experience in tasting different bourbon barrel aged stouts and Ned's and how we viewed it is, you know, you're basically creating a liquid that you want to emphasize those characteristics and to blend well with them. And so we are very, very careful in the recipes that we create to put into barrel.
Yeah.
And it has to, like, just to add on to what Justin said, the recipe design it's completely different from the start. So like the beers that we brew and ferment that are destined to go into barrel, a lot of the time they don't taste great when they're going into the barrel. Like like I said before, to try and push a yeast to do that job, to try and make a 13% beer, especially when we're using an English yeast strain, which, you know, doesn't really love to attenuate very well, and you're putting 30 Play-Doh wort from the brew house into the fermenter. Like, it's just, it's tough work.
Fun brew day though, come on.
Sometimes it's fun.
Yeah, we had some fun times. We had some not fun times. Not fun times.
Let's just say
Not
we've
fun.
learnt some lessons.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, the Horseman that's a 10% beer, you know, 9.5%, 10%. It's, yeah, but it is certainly, it shares similarities with the base beer of one of the recipes that goes into Fray. I mean, last year's Fray is a fairly similar recipe build to the first Horseman, but there's still like noticeable differences in the base beer.
I do actually like that concept of, like, the idea of that, brewing a beer with, you know, a different approach to use as a blend, especially for Australian whiskey barrels. But yeah, no, good to clear that up.
Yeah, totally.
Got another Patreon question here for you boys from our boy Graham Frizzle.
Hey Graham, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good dude.
It's solid.
Very good man. He wants to know, boys, from the pictures, so obviously you hadn't had it at the time, from the picture it looks like there's a great deal more head on this year's version, and we have now confirmed that there is definitely more head, more mouthfeel, more carbonation. But he wants to know how this was achieved and what sorts of variables govern such a result.
Well, I can say in short, but I'll let Neto take it. I'm just going to say in short that obviously when the first Fray came out and we put it together, we realized that it was an area that we needed to work on. And I feel that this year we've taken steps in the right direction to give you that lovely presentation. Fair statement, Ned? Or...
Absolutely. Yeah. It was like, yeah, it's not just with this beer; it's with all of our beers. It's a
okay.
constant. Oh, of course, it's a constant pursuit of. I'm obsessed with foam, with beer foam. I'm always banging on about
The
it.
fifth
Justin
ingredient.
he probably is so sick and tired of me talking about
No, I love it.
sometimes.
It's not
Yeah.
true at all. I love
No,
it. I love it.
no.
I love
I
the
know. I'm
conversations
just
we
saying
have.
that. I know you're not actually sick of it because we obsess over
I
it
love
together.
it being like 4 o'clock on a Friday, and you're like, "No, I want to talk to you about this." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, this is great. Cool. No, I'm only 2 hours late from picking my daughter up from
Yeah.
school. Cool. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's a constant endeavor. Like it's this pursuit of happiness. It never ends. It's like trying to create the most beautiful foam on any style of beer. And it's obviously some beers are easier to do that than others, like a lager that's
Don't you dare go on a lager tangent. Don't you dare.
I will be
It's about to
very
happen.
short.
Come on,
very
Neto.
short.
Come on, a little bit. Come on, I want it.
Do it.
Talk dirty to me.
Yeah, the Pilly Panther has finally got his attention. So, I mean, it's a lot easier to create foam on a beer that is, you can spund it naturally. You can build that natural carb. It gets really tight bubbles. It binds with the beer over time. The quality of carbonation, the interaction between the carbonation and the beer. It's not dry hopped. It's like that's a scenario where you can create foam relatively and more easily. When you get a beer that you have a lot of dry hops in, like a double IPA or even a triple IPA, it can be much more challenging. Let alone a barrel aged stout, that can be really challenging. So things that that we have manipulated over time, specifically not just to this beer, but with like a step mash can be really good. On the hot side, you can use like a gluco, a 72 degree or 73 degree rest can be really amazing for head retention. Grist formulations, so like how much protein you got in your grist, balance that out. Handle the beer gently, that's something that we've only gotten better and better at. Proper yeast removal out of the finished beer. So the first Fray that we had, we spoke about before, you get like those umami or Vegemite character to the beer. That's just not, that's a direct result of not removing enough yeast out of the beer before we're barrel aging it. And so it's effectively creating some autolysis on that beer and in the barrel.
And we appreciate all you Australian drinkers that like Vegemite and enjoy that flavor.
It's handy.
And thank you. No, thank you.
But that has a direct impact on head retention as well. And then the quantity and the quality of carbonation. So like how much carb are you able to get into the beer, and the quality, like how gently are you putting it into the beer? How much time has the beer got to absorb that? If you try and jam it in, great. Like you go the CO2 tick, but once you pour that beer in your glass, the CO2 is just not stable in that environment. It just wants to get out of there. You end up with the foam just drops down. Like it all sort of interplays. So we've learned a lot along the way, and it's something that we can see a noticeable difference in all of our beers, and we take pride in that. It's nice to be able to see it. Your hard work. I mean, when we saw the foam on the line when we were doing our first carb check, we just looked at each other and we just had a smile. It's like,
good.
I mean, we'll never achieve perfection. That's a lifelong pursuit. But I mean, shit, to see any foam on it compared to last year was just like.
Yeah, no, it was definitely something I noticed straight away, and I think it was one of the first things I said to you boys is like how much of a difference it makes just to the beer itself, mouthfeel, presentation, aroma as well, very, very important. So, well, tip of the hat to you boys.
Tip of the fedora, even.
Tip of the fedora. Oh,
cheers, mates.
He's got the Steppies glass out now.
Yeah, you haven't seen that already?
Yeah,
two Steppies glasses.
How good.
We can always have more barrel coming.
Always. Should we go to Queen E for a little bit? We've got only one more Patreon question, I think. So we do need to get to you guys listening live because that's what this whole thing's for. So rather than asking this final Patreon question, which is multi-tiered and a good one to finish on, what have we got, Queenie?
There's still quite a few questions coming through. We do have a couple.
Rapid fire. Let's do
Let's
it.
do some rapid fire.
Yeah, I'm about
Here?
rapid fire.
All right, here we go. Tim asks, are you going to do an Imperial Sour?
As
Like
in
one drop style.
That's just the question. Are you going to do an Imperial Sour?
Like a Hope Estate style beer. That sounds awesome.
more like a kettle sour or like a mixed culture
So
beer.
many questions from questions is what
Yeah,
I'm-
sorry. Yeah, we've done some fairly decent imperial cream. I mean, some fairly high ABV or whatever imperial sour cream sours. You know, Pomone is reserved. I mean, Pomona's harvest is coming out next week. Apricot and raspberry and lime. So that, in terms of mixed culture, I don't think so. Ned can probably comment, but I don't see imperial on any of those labels from
Chuck some
what we've
slushy
bottled
in
so
your mixed
far.
culture, Ned. Live a little, man.
Oh, gee.
Never say never, bro. Never say never.
Oh,
Yeah,
please,
that's
please don't, Ned. Please don't.
Look, mate, I'm
All
just
right,
trying to
next
put food on
question.
the table. I'm a humble brewer.
All right, rapid fire. Next question. Mick asks, what are your thoughts on distilling an Imperial Stout and attempting a whiskey?
Mick asked that, does he?
Of course he did.
Mick H, I imagine.
Yes.
Of course, he's at home on a Saturday night. Yep. Mick, hello.
Well done,
You know,
Well, Pirate Life are making some delicious beverages, I hear. I would never put them in my body, but I hear they're great.
Oh, no.
look, you know,
not touching
I
that
think
one.
that you can take any beverage and you can distill it and potentially turn it into
Alcohol.
alcohol or come on, man. You can turn it into a product, and then you can take that product and age it, and you can do a lot of things with it. I would say, you know, if we had some bourbon barrel aged stouts that, you know, wouldn't quite make the fray or couldn't do this or that, and we wanted to, you know, experiment and see what our options are, then, you know, I don't think it's totally unheard of.
No, but the
I mean-
quality in and quality out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine
So if
how
the
good hand sanitizer made out of Fray would be. It would, it would
Oh
fuck COVID
my
up.
word, that
It
would be
fuck
amazing.
COVID up real hard.
Thanks, Mick.
I don't know how I feel about
Mick's
it.
not getting
He's
a Christmas
sitting at
card.
home giggling to himself right about now.
Yeah,
for the text
right.
message.
Putting it lightly.
Another question is Browning has asked, what are your thoughts on old money? So the Stockade Old Money from Australia. You've talked a lot about rating the big US beers, but what are your thoughts on other Australian barrel aged beers?
I haven't had Old Money.
I've never had
I
it.
have. Old Money was very good. More than, I think there was a couple batches, but the first batch that I had of it was very tasty. It was very, very, very big bourbon characteristic. I'm not sure how large the batch size was and how many barrels were into that blend, but I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was a very tasty stout, and I think that there's a lot of really good stouts out there in Australia. You know, we always look to, you know, whether they're barrel aged or not. You know, we've tried, you know, we do try the ones from our friend Chris over at Mr. Banks, and you know, look, maybe I was on my computer at noon on Friday trying to score some stuff out of Brisbane and it failed miserably. But hey, you know, I'm just saying, you got to try everything.
Did you go for it? Did you?
I was in the middle of a meeting. It was really hard because everybody was asking me all these questions, and I was trying to do it on the side.
I think it went in
I wasn't
2
committed.
minutes. I think it went in 2 minutes.
Hey, Justin, we'll talk after the show.
There you go. But no, I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of good stouts, and I've always said to Ned and to anybody that will listen to me when I get on my soapbox that, the quality of beer in Australia is just going up and up and up and up.
100%.
And
100%.
from when I moved over here in 2015, or when I took my look-see visits in 2012, I think it's just been absolutely leaps and bounds. And I am, everybody should be so happy in terms of what is available in the market today and what's on the shelf, whether it's barrel aged or hoppy or sour or mixed culture or whatever. Yeah, so that's my opinion. I always look for stouts in the market. I will always go out and buy certain ones. I'm always very curious to see, what the boys in Reservoir are up to, and what Boat Rocker's up to, and what everybody is doing, and how they're playing it, because I love the style, and I don't want to develop cellar palate where I'm just drinking Fray all the time, and I think that's what it is. You gotta try what everybody's doing to see what they've come up with and how they've done it. That's really important.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes down to barrels, everyone's got a completely different approach. Not everyone same way, and not everyone is into bourbon casks. Like
They should be.
I've spoken to Paul Holgate multiple times about their imperial stouts that they've barrel aged, and he uses red wine barrels, and he gets really good results out of it. And I haven't bought one for a while, but he's been doing it a long time. So, and his ethos is, well, the barrels are right there, like the winery's right there. I'm in wine country, and there's something to say about that. Like, I wish that we didn't have to get them from America.
That's all right.
But as far as shipping something over the other side of the world, that doesn't make me feel great all the time.
No, I agree.
When there's other alternatives more locally, so there's definitely something we want to explore as far as more local spirit barrels and things.
The 2022 Tasmanian tour, Fray on tour, coming down to Tassie. Show us around. Let's put some barrels together. We'll do a mega blend.
Stevie's collab. We'll talk to our people.
Done.
Heard it here first.
All right, one more quick question for now. Jack Glavin asks,
Jack.
You've mentioned barley wine a little bit, and the can vent version was a banger, but
I like where this is going. Yep.
Jack would like to know, and I'm sure many others, are there any more plans for a full-sized version of a Deeds barley wine?
Well, all I can tell you is to, email your local councilman and let Pat and Dave know that there is a demand for barley wine out there, and that you are keen on it. Let them know. I wouldn't be totally out of it saying that there is a little bit of cheeky barley wine aging away in the cellar. So, no big deal. Such a tiny amount. We'll probably drink it ourselves.
You probably need to come to the tap room and drink it straight from the barrel.
Yes, but okay. Dave has been a massive supporter of wanting to do a barley wine. He pushes it, and Pat's been on board as well. We just have this last few months we've been focusing on stout and getting that done. But I wouldn't be surprised if you were at some point not too far in the distance, seeing an unbarreled barley wine product, and hopefully down the road something coming out of a sweet bourbon barrel.
Hello.
Just a little
Jack
summer dram of barley wine.
Yeah,
just on
absolutely.
The deck. Beautiful.
40 degrees.
I'm there.
At Gabs, when I finally met Pat for the first time, I'm pretty sure I was leaning over him heavily, telling him how he needs to let brewers brew barley wine.
It does sound about right. Yeah.
It's a new service Step Brewers are providing, where we just ring up owners and tell them to back off. Just like, no, the barley wine is happening. Lord Maris must be abated.
I think we got a little bit fired up with Pat and Dave when we were at Gabs. I think we got a little bit too excitable with them, but that's okay.
That's all right.
Got excited with everyone at Gabs.
Sometimes it's hard to contain the passion, I know as well as you do.
Look, we're all in the same boat here. Barley wine is life.
It is
So,
life.
You know, we're gonna make it happen.
Producer M, do you want any more little ones before I jump into a bigger one?
No, we've got another one that's sort of a bit bigger, but I think we should go back to the
Wow, guys, this is unbelievable. We've got another $10 Patreon joining the crew. Damien Shaw, thanks for joining the Patreon crew. This is
boy.
We need to do more live streams.
Bloody hell! You guys are reining it in tonight.
Yeah, we can buy some more Fray. So this is working out really well.
Or you can,
Just to be
you can
very
pay
clear.
off
We don't buy beer with Patreon
Just to
money.
be very,
I'm joking.
Just to be very clear, this studio is very expensive, and it's not the Fray. They are my dollars right there, and they're not all ours because we are not dickheads.
That was a joke.
Well, I am.
That was a joke.
This is not a flex. This is a lot of people's beer.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't build a can wall. I didn't build a can wall of this at all.
That's whatever helps you sleep.
You got to build that wall. Build that wall. All right. Look, let's get into this. Is a Patreon. This was really well received, this topic, when we said, you guys can have a dip first. This is Mr. Tony himself from Tony's Brew Pub. I want to go. Side note: I want to go to Tony's bar, as he calls his rumpus room, very badly. So if Gladys can just fix her fucking state, that would be lovely.
My Bucks party at Tony's bar. That'd be nice. Anyway, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
If Mrs. Annetts will have us, we're there. Multi-tiered question. Many Australian stout drinkers believe that Aussie stouts generally lacked heft and mouthfeel compared to US stouts. What is your view on this? Do you agree? Why would it be the case? And what do local breweries need to do to remedy the gap? And, my favourite part of the question, should they try? So I think, Tony's referring to, I guess, those big hefty boys that we see coming out of the States. That many people on the stream, would have jumped on My Beer Collectibles or hooked up a mule on. We were having some lovely Grey Monday.
We had Black Tuesday.
Black Tuesday last night.
Yeah.
So yeah, the question: what's your view on this? Should we be chasing it as Australian brewers?
I think so. I think that. Hi Tony. I'm glad to see you're out there. I hope you're enjoying the beers.
You were very excited when you saw he was on the list for questions.
Oh, he's a man that knows his stouts. So I'm very happy to see that he is interested in trying ours. I think at the end of the day, I think that balance is incredibly important. And I know that sounds like a throwaway answer, but it doesn't change when you start talking about bourbon barrel-aged imperial stouts. I think that at the end of the day, like we've said a couple times here, is that we brew beers specifically for barrel. And I think that if you take the second Horseman or third Horseman and throw it in barrel, you may get a couple barrels that are very tasty. But I don't think that the beer in its format as it is designed for barrel. And I think that's incredibly important. And as Ned has mentioned, there's multiple recipes at play. And he also, and I can quote him, he said, we want to give ourselves as many tools as possible in order to make a bourbon barrel-aged beer. And if that means recipes that highlight different things, it means different barrels, different lengths of time aging. We basically want to give ourselves as much flexibility as possible to come up with a Fray blend or something like that. And I don't know what a lot of other breweries are doing in Australia, and I just want them to keep making great beer and doing what they can do. I think another thing we talked about, maybe I can't remember if we talked about it on or off air, in terms of the palate between Americans and Australians and sweetness and that push for sweetness and what you're looking for when it comes to that. But I mean, from my perspective, if you're making a beer and you're going to put it in a barrel that has, bourbon soaked into the wood, and that's going to affect your final body, then you need to brew a beer that is going to, basically make sure that when it's all said and done, it balances with that, and you come out with something. Well, I think, I think Australian brewers should, shoot for the moon every time. Every time. You should make the absolute best beer that you can, and put it in barrel and bring it out of barrel, and get everybody a chance to drink it. So, I guess I might be rambling a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think the balance in a bourbon barrel aged stout is absolutely paramount in importance, just like in any other beer. You can't just take a stout, throw it in barrel, and expect it to just come out and be amazing, like a quick add-on barrel flavor done. I don't think it works like that at all. I think you have to remember what that barrel's impact is going to be, and have a beer design to build on that and highlight what you want in that beverage. Like I always say to Ned, I've had it happen to me before. If I buy a bourbon barrel aged stout and I pay the price to get that bottle or can, and I crack it, and if I don't get a hint of bourbon right away, I'm concerned, And I think it's the same with body and balance and your recipe formation, because you want all of those things to come together. I don't know. I mean, I've had some thinner stouts in Australia, and I've had some pretty thick stouts in Australia, both barrel aged and not barrel aged. So I don't know. I know that people that have access or can, taste some of the things going on in the States, and, different levels of body and whatever they taste, I'm pretty sure at the end of that experience, they are saying that beer was amazingly balanced. The alcohol, it was smooth. It wasn't too hot. Its sweetness kept everything else in check, and it warmed me into, the cockles of my heart. So in my opinion, I think, I think body is incredibly important for beer, and it's a real challenge, and it takes a lot of time and trials and experiments to find out what that impact is going to be. And then it's still a roulette game, because every barrel is different, and every beer, whether it's 829 or 830, they could come out very differently, and that leads right back into having the blend.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Only just a couple quick things I might add to that is, I find it really interesting that the larger body that you find in American stouts, like that ties straight into me, like in my experience in America, and just their palates are way more accustomed to a higher level of sugar in their food and beverage. So what they consider sweet and what Australians consider sweet are it's not really in the same ballpark, so to speak. But then also their access to bourbon barrels is way easier, and so the barrels they get are probably a lot fresher and wetter, and so they would need a bigger body to try and balance that out. So it's it kind of works. I guess, they might have a beer that finishes at 15 Plato or something, right? Which is like a crazy amount of residual sugar, but then they be getting wet barrels from, take Side Project, for example. They're in St. Louis, Missouri, and Kentucky's just there. So, but then in Australia, you might have a beer that finishes at 8 Plato, and then obviously, the barrels are going to spend months on the shipping container, if not the dock, at this point in life.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. I just think the difference in palate definitely plays a huge part. It's do people really like that, in Australia? Because Americans really love sweet. They really do.
Oh yeah,
It's true.
Big time.
It's true.
Big time.
And you have to work with what you have available. I think Ned
exactly.
summed it up, So
it's balanced. That can be like a throwaway, brewer's term, or a sensory thing. It's we always try to achieve balance, and it's a bit of a thing to kind
of throwaway.
say.
It's a throwaway answer.
Yeah, it really is. But it's you want the beer to be drinkable. Otherwise, it's put it in a big can like this, and you want to share that between 8 people because it's so fucking sweet.
Yeah. Had cans like that before.
Tefnut.
Yeah, Tefnut being one of them. That was
intense.
Yeah, and that's a completely different kettle of fish. Guys, this is sort of one of the last questions I've got for you.
Yeah, I missed this one. I lied. The last one wasn't.
From the Patreon crew, and this is from very good homie of the show, friend of the show, Justin. It's a good question. He's said that he's noticed that Once More Into the Fray is 12.9% pre-barrel. Would this obviously suggest high OG and attenuation? Without giving too much away, can you tell us on how that is achieved? Thanks, Justin, from Justin. So he's wanting Justin to go for this one.
He doesn't like.
That's a bit
All right.
Anyway.
Oh no!
No,
Look, I think
it's
Neto
a
already.
main
I
thing.
mean, I think in
I
a way
get it.
Neto answered the question already.
Mm.
He did throw out there a 30 Plato wort.
That's,
Yeah.
I
So
mean, 30 is like ballpark. Could be more.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Exactly.
depends on the
I mean,
beer.
it's a battle to get that kind of extract, and it's even a battle to keep your yeast moving forward on it and not just giving up the ghost.
Do you guys feed that ferment, or is it all from Brewdog?
Sometimes
Yeah.
depends.
Just, like,
The
protect
main
that-
thing
protect
is
that yeast.
yeah. The main thing is just don't give it all. Like if you're going to use simple sugars, using too much simple sugars in the brew house can be detrimental to your attenuation performance.
Yeah, you might hit your Plato target. Okay, fair enough, great. But then the yeast gets in there, and it's like, hey man, look at all this simple sugar. Let's just go to town on this. And then your more complex sugars that are sitting there are like, what about us? And then you come to the end of fermentation where it's already an unpleasant environment for the yeast, and they're not as interested.
No, they've already eaten all their tiramisu, and they're not interested in the pizza
It's like
or the salad. So
it's like bringing out a bucket of the Colonel's finest, like mid degustation. Like it's not a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea. No,
Pre-
you want the yeast to work hard,
pre-degustation.
and then you reward them in the end.
Yeah. So
Okay, interesting.
yeah, but like overall, it just goes back to managing high ABV fermentations, which obviously we do a lot of those. Double IPAs, triple IPAs, imperial stouts, pastry stouts, beers with a lot of lactose. Like that osmotic pressure on the yeast alone, like doing a beer like the Milk Bar series or the Pomona's Harvest, which is a new double fruited imperial sour we got coming out next week. The amount of sugar on that yeast is just like, it's such a hard job for them, and you've really just got to feed them you've got to get as much dissolved oxygen into that wort as you possibly can. Try and give the yeast the best chance to have a fighting go at it. And yeah, it's always challenging doing high ABV stuff. But yeah, you can push it. It's just through trial and error as well.
Definitely. Well, we've got Queen E back in the air, so she might go back to the YouTube live stream, which I just had a quick look at that. It's up and about, and I like to see it. What have you got, Queen E?
Well, not only do I have a couple of questions, but I actually have another new Patreon.
Oh, unbelievable.
Can we please...
Definitely want points on the back end, guys.
Yeah. Where's that cut?
We couldn't do this without you boys. What's going on?
I'll send you the Fray back now.
Take it easy.
Welcome
I'll give you my
to
address.
James Zolo from the Foxtrot Inn in New South Wales.
Love. G'day, James. I hope you're holding up in lockdown Sydney. I know this. I think he's new. I think he's only just taken over this bar.
He has.
Recently,
Yes.
so I'm sure that's very hard. So heart goes out to you there. Stay strong.
He is in full renovation mode at the moment, so it's looking very, very schmidt on the socials.
Keep busy.
But he has actually asked a question, so I'm going to go straight to his. And it is, which of the variation beers that are on tap at last weekend at the brewery were the most surprising or the most favourite of yours, boys?
You mean in terms of Fray or the variant?
Yeah, the variants that were on.
Because
They're probably talking about the Oaks Midwinter as well, JC.
And you had an
unbarreled Fray.
Unbarreled Fray.
Unbarreled, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think for me, Neto can comment, but I think for me that, the 2021 vintage of Fray is exactly where we want it to be. And
Look at the smile.
Look at the
Yeah.
smug
Yeah,
little
yeah.
smile.
I think it's, for me, it's been a labor of love and whatever to get to a point where you're drinking, bourbon barrel aged stouts, dreaming of making one day and then making one. And though I do enjoy the variant, and I like the coffee and the vanilla additions to it, and I feel that it has a very different profile and bold flavor. Yeah, the original Fray for me always kind of stands up. So
Yeah, I would totally agree. Although I think that the question might have said, what did it ask something about which one of them surprised you the most or something?
Yeah, that was part of the question.
Yeah, so just to take another, I guess, angle at it, I would say the two of them surprised me in the variant of the omit, which once more into the Fray, that surprised me in that it is quite aggressive in the barrel selection. We really went for something more punchy. So that's 15.5%. With the vanilla beans out of, I think it was P&G. The origin of those we used quite a lot in the bright tank with that one, as well as some cold brew extract from was it Supreme, the coffee provider for that one, JC?
correct, yeah.
Yeah. So the coffee came out real punchy, like, to start with, because it's just basically a liquid that dissolves in. We love using cold brew because it's we just find that we get better results. We've talked about this in the past, I think, guys, but initially that was really like punchy, and it was like, oh yeah, coffee. Oh yeah, like once this gets carbonated, our previous experience is showing that coffee is just gonna like only elevate with carbonation. We're like, okay, cool, we've made a 15.5% like latte.
With a bit of
And
bit of
then,
Miller.
but well, over time, like, we rouse the vanilla every day, and over the weekend it kind of infused more in that high alcohol environment and really came up. And by the time we packaged it mid next week, it was like the vanilla just really, it just provides this beautiful softness and fullness to the beer that
Rounded
balances
out
out
the
the
edges.
coffee. Yeah, so that one really, it came around to surprise me nicely, as did the unbarreled Fray, we ended up calling it, which is not 100% Fray, because, like I explained before, it's two different beers that actually 60-40 made up the blend. But that one, like I said, it's, those beers don't taste particularly good necessarily going into the barrel, but that is aged in the keg the same amount of time. Like, that went into the keg the same day that beer went into the bourbon barrel. So it has aged and probably rounded out somewhat. A bit of oxidation's probably helped round out those flavors, bring out the malt character a bit more. Those two have done pretty well, I think.
It's amazing to taste them side by side as well.
Isn't it? Like, taste
Stop it.
honestly.
Yeah,
like,
just to see, it's like, oh, this is what happened. This is what it was.
But tasting our beers on tap, full stop, like, this is the thing, like, just to go back to the tap room, man, tasting our beers on tap is so special, because we just never really been able to do that. Like, unless you go to Carwin, or maybe you go to Mr. West or Beer Mash, or you're at another venue somewhere, and, we don't all have time to, or, whatever, to do that sort of thing. So to actually be able to taste them on draft in the venue, and not have to crack a full 440 of something, like, it's been really special. And like, hats off, like, on that note, hats off to the full brew team. Like,
full credit to the boys,
I feel,
I reckon.
and the women, like, we've talked a lot about Justin and myself tonight, and I feel like that's probably a bit of a wank fest. Like, we've got Justin.
It's nice to wank over Fray.
Yeah, it really. Talked a bit before about how we've got such a good team at the moment, and honestly, our team is A class. Like, we're in such a good spot. We're actually doing more manageable hours now because we've got such amazing, team of 4 that manage those day and night shifts and control
Production.
the brew house and the cellars in production. Like, and
Amazing.
some of them have got really good palates. And Christy, like, she's running the sensory program now in the lab, and she's really taking our stuff leaps and bounds. And as all like when
Andrew,
we
Ben, and Max. Yep. All right.
and
I'm
yeah,
shouting the
Andrew,
names out.
good.
What's
It's a team effort, and like the beers
Absolutely.
improve, and everyone has a part in it. So I guess that's the
even
point I would
packaging?
make.
Even
Even
Packaging. The most important guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
No,
have to
definitely.
blame
they
somebody
are,
for something.
because they can't make the beer better down there. They can only fuck it up. Like
Well,
Wow,
that's
I can't believe you'd put
that's
that
a lot
into
of
him.
so what you're
It's a lot
trying
of
to say is,
pressure.
Neto, you want everyone to get down to the tap room, so no packaging is necessary, and it's going to be.
There you go. Come and just drink the beer straight off the tank, and
There you
then
go, Pat. It's
Yeah.
in the episode now. It took us a few hours to get there.
Yeah,
But it's
that's
in
right. You've got to search
Yeah.
through, and you'll find it somewhere. But yes,
he
I
won't
saw
be
the.
sending you the bill for the paint sheet now. So
I saw the list this week, boys. Once you've reopened,
Fuck me.
wow,
dead.
I would have loved to be there for this week. It's
Me too.
oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
on holidays. Fuck.
Mm. Hey, you can go back to work and drink it on tap. That'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
Come
not.
on.
Yeah.
How good. How good. Now,
I think
we've very much indulged
we have.
and taken so much of your time, gentlemen.
I think it's starting to come to a close, guys. It's,
Yeah. Do we have a final question, Queen E, from the live crew? I don't want to disappoint the people who have put their time into listening to us waffle.
Ooh, we do have a couple of just sneaky questions about possible beers and if they will be brewed in the future at Deeds. So we've got Patreon Benny Mac has asked, what about a possible Deeds version of Endless Ending? So a barley wine cross stout blend.
I reckon, once we get the beer in barrels and we have it available to us, just like any tools, it's definitely on the cards of something that we want to do.
Yeah.
AleSmith
You just-
reforged style.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you just need to, and we'll put it in the show notes. We'll just put Pat's email address in there. You just need to effectively get all the Patreons on board to lobby, so we can put some barley wine in barrels.
I did.
We are but humble brewers.
Yeah, yeah.
I did see
Do
that.
what we're told. We will make.
I
the
did see
barley
that
wine.
Tony sent me a message and said, "Hail Lord Maris, barley wine is life." So that's beautiful to see.
Barley wine is life.
How good, how good. What else have you got, Queen E?
The second question comes from Wazzy Yates. Yes, who's asked, will Deeds brew a Hefeweizen at some stage?
Yes, I think about it every day.
Come on, man. Paul Mares has wanted to brew a Hefeweizen for a long time.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
original,
likes it.
hazy, the original hazy boy.
Yeah.
He has. You're
He
right.
has.
He has.
I think that we will at some point. Now with the tap room open, we've got a lot more flexibility in what we can do in both small, medium, and large size batches. So a Hefeweizen is definitely on the cards.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other little releases. We've got 400 liter yeast prop vessels, which can
Oh, lovely.
also act as basically small uni tanks or fermentation vessels. So
Ooh, flexibility.
yeah, little things like if we want to do a Belgian blonde or a Hef or
Yeah.
something that's a Schwartz beer or something that's really not going to warrant a full release, but you can move it through the tap room, trying different yeast strains, stuff like that. Yeah, tap room's an amazing
Perhaps a
tool.
Dunkel. Oh wait,
Perhaps.
no, we
we
released a Dunkel.
We did that one.
No, nobody remembers that one. Yeah.
Nah,
What was
fair
that
enough.
called?
Dark Skies. It came out with Omen. What do you expect?
That's
They
right.
serve a
No,
lager with a bourbon barrel aged stout.
I think you know it's okay. It's okay. You're all lovely.
It's a lovely beer. It's a wonderful beer.
James Lewis messaged me and said that or
That was-
commented on my post, and is he the one you're talking about?
Yes, I was. I was keeping that quiet, but it was him. I think he's in the chat, isn't he? Em?
He was. I'm not sure if he's there anymore.
He was basically giving props, and I was like, "Thank you personally
Thank you
for buying this kind of beer because it allows us to make this kind of beer. Because no one else really wants to drink it. No one really does. No one cares about a decoction mash, but
I do, mate.
anyway,
I do.
DJ said the same.
three people care.
Yep.
You gotta decoct from the top for that wet ass pilly. That's what I'm saying. Love that energy.
That's raw. That's
Sounds so dirty.
Yep. That's
Well,
we like it. Hey,
we should wrap it up. This would go all night. Otherwise,
it easily could. We've done it before, but I think
seeing your little screen you've got down there, just bang, bang, bang. Love it. Love the energy of the room.
Yeah, no,
We should do this more often.
We should do this more often. This has been a lot of fun, and we do thank the boys for.
Should we ask everybody to raise a glass?
Oh,
Why not? I've run out of
yeah, I've
beer,
run out
but
of beer as well.
Come on,
We
guys. What are you doing?
I was not sure if
You got like,
Ali-
open the real can, not one of the fake ones.
yeah,
No
these are
pressure.
all actually just ducks, guys, and we've just been like
Excellent.
down on them. But let's all. I would love with everyone to raise a glass. Fray 2021 for JC
Cheers,
and
guys.
Neto for taking time out of their Saturdays
Hey.
for us. Cheers, everyone, and
Thank you so much for having us. It was awesome.
Thanks,
Always
boys.
a pleasure. Always a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Queen.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Queen E,
Yeah.
for running the producer station, and
Thank you, Emily. Cheers.
We won't have to wait till next year to do this if you're going to do quarterly releases, but we will all have to remortgage at our houses. So this has been
Yes.
Step Brewers Podcast. I'm your host, Papa Sweden.
I'm the Pilly Panther. This was JC and Neto. Toodaloo.
Thank you, guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Step Brewers Podcast. If you like the show, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review to help other beer lovers discover the podcast.
I'm going with the blend now.
Oh, rightio, rightio.